Good morning, good day, good evening, good night. Wherever and whenever you're listening to this, welcome to today's Bitcoin or OpenSUSE Minus United Town Hall. Because we are here at OpenSUSE Minus United Discord, and I'm happy to be your host. I'm One Clue, and with me on the stage is Scott. Today we do have a couple of topics that we want to talk about, but first let's see how the audience is doing and how things are moving forward in this open source space. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. Been busy, but it's been an exciting week.
Is it? Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, what was it? Was it 2 weeks ago? Bitaxe solved a block. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was like we had this wild kind of town hall thingy in the middle of the night, at least here over in Europe.
right. That's right. Have we have a regular town hall since the Bitaxe solved a block? I don't think so. Have we?
No, this is the first one.
Oh, well, there you go. So this is pretty exciting. I mean, we everyone got super stoked, and we had a ninja launch town hall when the block got solved. That was fun. Uh, but yes, first regular scheduled one since someone, we don't know who, solo mined a block using solo CK pool. I noticed that they've moved their bitcoins out of the wallet they mined into, so that's good news. That means someone has noticed and they had the private keys. So that's always good. It'd be really tragic if they solo mined a block and had forgotten their private keys, or they just never noticed. Like their BitAxe was just kind of running in a corner somewhere and they just forgot to look at it. But they clearly have noticed. We know that this one was a BitAxe because they had named their workers BitAxe on Solo CK Pool, and Solo CK Pool allows you to look up the stats and the worker names associated with a wallet address, which of course you can also see in the Coinbase on the blockchain. So pretty certain. Obviously, it's not 100% guaranteed, but pretty certain that was a BitAxe. I think they had like 6 of them running. Pretty cool.
Yeah, like it
Uh,
was a little bit over 3 terahash in total,
yeah, yeah, and I think it was they had a couple Supras and a few Ultras running,
and it was an ultra
and
who was catching the block.
yeah, right, pretty cool. And not only did they solve the block, but they absolutely just destroyed the block. I think the network difficulty is 112 trillion, and they got 719 trillion. So that's an overachiever.
That's a
It's also
lucky
kind of
shot.
interesting that the all the rest of their bid axes, their best difficulty that we could see from CK Pool at least, their best difficulty was in the millions. And then they had one, of course, that was 719 trillion. So, just because your bid axe is wallowing in sort of the low difficulty or best difficulty doesn't mean it can't happen.
It always can. It's always a luck factor. It's like every couple seconds there's the potential for you or for your ASIC at least to find the next valid solution.
And it's not like your history has anything to do with your luck going forward. Like your previous shares and the difficulty associated with those doesn't mean anything. Like you could have your best difficulty be one, and then the next hash could solve a block. Like it just doesn't really work like that.
No, that's the cool part about it, especially when it comes to like solo mining and just trying your luck out. It's obviously it's also the same with other payout schemes or connecting to a regular pool. It's always this luck factor. Like even if you have like a big fleet of mining machines, it is one single ASIC in one of your hundreds of miners who's the one who was just rolling the dice in a perfect second and catching the block.
Yes, that's always kind of cool to think about. When these blocks happen, this is the second BitAxe block, but there's always these, posts that come out like BitAxe solves the block against all odds, like overcomes uh, the odds and solves the block. And it's like, well, yes, but every block is solved by an ASIC chip that has overcome, the odds,
Yeah.
that has overcome crazy odds every single time. It's always solved by one chip, by one hash that has overcome insane odds. That's how it works.
That's the beauty of it. It's never like, oh man, we do have these people quite regularly here in the audience, or not in particular in the town hall audience, but in this Discord of Open Source Minus United. And for everybody who's listening later on to this town hall here, and by the way, we are writing the number 31 already, you can find our Discord server at discord.gg/osmu. So sometimes we do have a couple of people who are coming in here and asking, well, my miner is stuck at like 200 million best difficulty. What am I doing wrong? Well, the answer is nothing. It is absolutely doing everything just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's called a high score, but like I was saying earlier, it just doesn't matter what your high score is. Like, you have the same chances for the next hash as every other hash and every other Bitaxe and every other miner.
Well, shall we talk a little bit about a couple of other updates? It's absolutely amazing that there was another block found and solved by Bitaxe. But as you pointed out, there's not like 100% guarantee that it actually was a Bitaxe. It could be potentially some sort of other machine with 500 gigahash that was naming Bitaxe Ultra, but it's very unlikely. But nevertheless, we do have a couple other cool things that I want to point out here. For example, I was doing an announcement about the Nerd Haxe, written Nerd Haxe. And this is a cool new Nerd Haxe variant that was created and was published a couple days ago. And I made a quick announcement about it because it's just looking beautiful, and I was so stoked about it, but I was also stoked about the improvements that I've seen in the EcoMiner channel, and I wanted to give a shout out here to Phil31 for doing what he is doing, because he posted on the same day, and I totally missed on that he finally achieved to get his device up and running and working and hashing, which is so cool. So everybody who's on this Discord, make sure to check out the EcoMiner channel, because he's sharing all his stuff that he's doing on his journey of designing a different kind of board on a well-established design that we do have in between the Bitaxe or the Nerd Haxe series and everything else, and a little bit of common sense when it comes to electronic components. But yeah, it is just looking insane what's happening here. We do see more and different boards coming up, multiple chips, which is quite interesting, because now we're getting into an area where we are no longer this just tiny one ASIC device, but now we are actually getting into a scene that more people are probably also interested. We are probably not hitting any like big machines like the Antminer machines, not very soon, maybe in the future. I do hope so. But I do get it that people are thirsty for more hash rate, and seeing this, that he got it up and running and working is just phenomenal.
Yes, huge shout out to Phil31. It's been really fun to follow his progress and sort of the trials and tribulations of getting this running. I believe it's a 10 chip miner, right? The BM1370s.
It could be. Let me quickly check on that.
I think that's right. I think he's got 10 on there. Oh no, 12.
12 chips. 12 ASIC chips.
Yeah. A dozen chips. So that's badass. I mean, this is going to be a pretty punchy miner.
Yeah, he was posting a screenshot of his dashboard after he said around 24 hours he was sitting at like 7.5 terahash. So
okay,
that's okay-ish if you do think about 12 BM1370s, but he's starting somewhere, and obviously he needs to go a little bit into what it takes to make sure that all the components are aligning with each other and that it is stable enough to run at higher amperages. So I'm not really sure what his journey is with all this, but sharing all these information and showing how he's doing everything is just amazing. And obviously, it's open source, which is the best part about it.
Yeah, that's so cool to see. I mean, I really, really appreciate people like PMAX, UW also just from the very beginning, just open source it. Like don't necessarily, you don't even have to wait until you're done. If you want to like get help from people and encourage people to help on your project and follow along and contribute, open source it sooner rather than later. I don't think, especially with like a 12 chip miner, I don't think people are just going to start manufacturing out from underneath you and steal all your profitability or whatever. Like you're still going to be able to make it and sell it and make money, even if you open source it. I think it's you're gonna get some eyes on it that I think are useful in the development process if you open source it. And of course, that's what we're here. That's what we're all about on OSMU is open source miners. So it's rad to see people doing that. Really appreciate it when people embrace that. And I think it's good for Bitcoin. It's good for all of us and for decentralizing hash rate, which I think is pretty important stuff.
It definitely is. It's like always this topic on how to actually get people into this thinking of what we're trying to achieve here with decentralizing the hash rate, which is nice if you do think about the hardware terms that you now have like a huge audience of. I assume we do have over 60,000 Bitaxes already manufacturers worldwide. This is quite an estimate number. I'm trying from time to time to catch up with a couple of manufacturers and trying to get numbers from them, how many they have produced so far. And I think like 60 between 70K is a sufficient number to say that we already do have achieved, probably even more, but I don't have exact numbers. So what I wanted to point out here.
That's a lot more than I would have guessed, but that's amazing.
What I wanted to point out here is like we're doing the right thing with going into decentralizing where these mining devices are located, but we also need to tackle a little bit on the other side of the thing. Like the mining device is the one side and the other one is the pool. And it's always fun to watch people bragging about their pool they're using, for example, on Twitter or any other platforms. It's really a hard topic because you do have this hard decision between, hey, do I want to do solo mining and maybe never catch a block, or do I want to get like a daily payout, which is understandable, but so far there is not this option for being truly decentralized because we have seen P2Pool back in the days. It failed because of numerous reasons, because Bitcoin grew too much. It is still in there in another coin. There is a P2P pool implementation, but for Bitcoin it failed. There's this idea of bread pool, but I think there's no real implementation on bread pool so far that would be sufficient to run. And therefore,
we've got a guest in our audience who knows a thing or two about how braid pool works. Maybe he wants to come up here and pitch if that's the future or not. I don't know.
Oh, that would be so awesome.
Spot, but yeah, got a distinguished guest here on that front.
I mean, let's see if.
There you go. All right.
There we go.
How do we get him up on stage? There we go.
Hello.
What's up, dude?
Hello, do you guys hear me?
Yeah,
I hear you.
loud and clear.
Awesome. Great to line up for Rad Pool, Braid Pool, P2 Pool. It's a big problem that we have in the space, that building an open source pool that can coordinate miners, and given the resistance that comes from centralized pools, it's quite a challenge actually. But anyway, so the question was that how does Braid Pool work, right? And
I mean, let's quickly get the audience onto the same level of what P2Pool was, and maybe then you can step in and say what's different to bread pool then.
Yeah.
I hope I do pronounce it
Yeah.
correct here. So from my
No,
understanding,
that. Mhm.
from my understanding, P2Pool was like basically this coordination of like multiple servers or instances of software running all around the globe, and they do utilize a different network. Like you can think of a sidechain, if I'm not mistaken. There, that's my understanding of it, and this can then port it over to the mainnet and distribute it to the main network of whatever coin P2Pool would be running on.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a very solid understanding there. So what P2P pool tried to do back in the day was it was essentially another blockchain where all the blocks were weaker Bitcoin blocks, right? So what you might call shares in the good old uh, centralized pool terminology. So, for example, think about all the bit axes, right? All the blocks that you're finding with difficulty that does not meet the Bitcoin difficulty can be thought of as a share, right? In solo mining, we're just waiting that one of them gets lucky and that BitX gets all the reward. Whereas in pooled mining, what you would do is throw them all in as proof that you are working, and then you do some accounting magic on it. Now that is easy in the centralized pool because there's one database. What P2P pool was trying to do was saying, hey, let's not have a centralized server. Let's have a peer-to-peer server, a peer-to-peer network, just like that's why P2P pool. And we'll just run a blockchain to track who did how much work, as opposed to throwing it all in a centralized database. So, of course, it's got its challenges because there's a lot more data to replicate everywhere. And there was a few other challenges which essentially led to P2P pool being abandoned. But I don't know if is that a good groundwork up to now to kind of talk about what P2P pool was trying to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting challenge, right, as to why it failed. Um, so there was a few finger pointing, including our good old friends from China, ant miners, that they cut down the amount of Coinbase size that was allowed, and therefore you couldn't pay out the rewards. So, okay, taking a step back. So if you have peer-to-peer mining where all the miners are kind of just running this blockchain where all the blocks, quote unquote, are essentially shares. How do you pay out the miners, right? How do you know as to how do you make the payment, right? In centralized pools, it's like, okay, here's some Bitcoin address and they send it off to you, etc. But how do you send it off in a peer-to-peer network without anyone ever being in custody of the coins, right? So they were doing what now Ocean does, which is put things in the Coinbase, right? So if there were 10 people mining in the last block, then for the next block, those 10 people will be paid out directly from the Coinbase. Does that make sense?
It does, but it adds up
Yeah.
this challenge that you pointed out earlier. Like we do notice with like a centralized instance of a pool, it is super easy. Just run a second database in the background and account for all the shares that your miners are sending, and then later on you do have your main wallet on your pool software that you control as a pool operator, and you can pay out depending on the share reward your miners. But it becomes a challenge, especially as you said, like it is limited on the block header how many payouts you can make to miners.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
with P2Pool, we had this sidechain which was accounting a little bit on that. But now the real question or the real issue is how do we actually scale this up with something like an idea of bread pool?
So Braidpool, basically, what Braidpool originally the idea when I was actually contributing to Braidpool for a while, and the idea was that we basically so there was another challenge, which is that if you just have a linear chain on the side chain, right? There's only so many blocks that can fit in. Does that make sense? So if there are 100 people mining, and say a block time is say 1 minute instead of 10 minutes of Bitcoin block time, there is a block time of 1 minute. Then within the 1 minute, you want all the 10 miners blocks to appear, right? So you can do that for 10. Well, can you do that for 100? Can you do that for 1,000? So there was this challenge of how do we scale this side chain to accommodate a lot more miners, right? That was another challenge. So these were the two basic challenges. One, the payout, and the second was how do we scale out this chain so that we can have more miners able to contribute hash rate to it, right? So, so what offers is that let's change this side chain into a DAG, which is like a graph, right? Instead of a linear chain, think of it just like a directed acyclic graph. It's basically a whole. It's a slightly more involved data structure in computer science where you essentially have one block could point to like say 10 previous blocks, right? And each of those could further point to 10 previous blocks. So it kind of explodes. It's like a tree, but a DAG, right? So one suggestion was to change from this linear chain to a DAG. And the second was the payout mechanism could we do it with something like say making payout channels, right? And I don't know if
So
you
a
guys are
switch.
familiar with Chris Belcher's.
I'm sorry for the interruption, but so would this mean like a switch over to Lightning, for example, instead of relying on the main chain because we cannot fit more transactions into the block header?
So Lightning is one possibility, right? But Lightning channels are slightly more involved because they are bidirectional payments, right? Both parties can send to each other. Whereas in this case, think that the pool is always only ever paying out to the miners. So it's a unidirectional channel. It's never that the miner will be paying back to the pool operator. You know what that means? So maybe we could have a simpler construction, right, than Lightning. And also, we don't need a network effect. We can probably just have money coming in from the Coinbase and being sent using payout channels, unidirectional payout channels, which are now also being called Spillman channels to pay out the miners. So some constructions like Lightning or unidirectional channels, or now even we are considering atomic swaps. All these things are kind of in the play. So, um, so there's a few possibilities there. But now, I was talking to Matt Corallo, and basically we came up with a simpler design. It could be called simpler design, but it's actually harder to implement. But it's simpler to communicate.
I was gonna say, that
This is the
doesn't sound
first
like
time.
Matt.
Yeah. This is the first time I'm kind of trying to voice this in public, so let's see how simple it sounds.
Let's go.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, so um, you see, the side chain till now was just tracking who did how much work, and then all the execution of the payout was kind of off the chain. It was somehow done somewhere else, right? So one idea is that what if on the P2P pool side chain we had a transaction engine, just like Bitcoin, right? Or Litecoin or Dash or whatever you want to call them, right? UTXO based, Bitcoin script based transaction system, right? So when miners mine a block, right? When a Bitaxe basically, say, for example, is mining a block, even if it is a weaker block than Bitcoin block, it has a Coinbase, which basically says, I mined this much work and this is mine, right? I own this now. My private key owns this Coinbase of this block, right? So now when a time comes to payout, say for example there are 10,000 miners. Let's exaggerate a little, right? But the Coinbase can only fit in 50, right? So the proposal from Matt was, and I kind of really liked it because I first didn't get it what he was saying for a long time. Eventually I got it, which is like the other 950 guys could just sell their Coinbase to the other 50 guys. Does that make sense?
It does, but who
I
who
could sell.
would
Like
want to
ahead of
do
time?
that?
So for example, I have one Bitaxe, right? And I'm making like one share a week, right? And I know that I'm never gonna be big enough to get into the top 50 Coinbase, right? And now let's say that one share of mine for a week was like worth $10. right? If somebody comes along, Scott comes along and says, "Hey, I'm buying all these shares, but I'll only buy it for $8, right? So I'm going to charge 20% fees or 2% fees or whatever it is, and I'm going to give you Bitcoin now, right? So I'll say, okay, hey Scott, I send my share to you. Now your Coinbase controls it. Like this is a simple transaction, right? And now Scott has all these shares he's bought from everybody. And whenever the payout happens, Scott gets money for everybody. But Scott has already paid us in advance, like a few days in advance or a week in advance, and for which he charges a premium.
Oh, that's
Is
interesting.
that
That's a really interesting. I'm intrigued. What? Oh, this is, but
it seems like I
So,
was able to communicate it. I'm just really happy for that.
and so, I mean, the price for it would be just speculative, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know that, like, I don't even know how much hash rate you really have, right? I mean, how do I prove that to you?
So if I am mining my shares, right, and I'm mining them all to the same pay to public key hash, then you know that how much hash rate I have. You can figure that out, right?
Yeah, but then what's to stop me from just taking the money and running?
Yeah, that is the big question, right? So, well, you taking so this is an atomic swap, right? So I'm
oh,
selling you my P2P pool Coinbase outputs for Bitcoin, right? So I'm getting my Bitcoin immediately. You're the one taking the risk that maybe the pool doesn't find a block for like 2 more weeks,
so
right?
instead of
And
now
you'll get paid
relying
out only into.
So instead of now relying solely on the block header and the 50 payout transactions that we can make in there, we are now also utilizing the block itself and putting transactions for the sidechain of P2Pool into the block who is paying out in the block header. But now we have this transaction trading scheme, which is in the transactions of the block itself.
Of the P2P pool blocks, right? So
On the
that
main
transaction's
net,
happening. That
because,
transaction's happening both sides because it's an atomic swap.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
this is
I
interesting.
mean, so this thing gets more interesting because atomic swap is still taking a fair amount of block space, right? Then you talk to the Lightning folks, and they say, yeah, we do swaps on Lightning. So we're like, okay, this is very fascinating. So if you have P2P pool with a transaction engine, which becomes like Litecoin, imagine, right? So we had Litecoin and Bitcoin swaps. Can we build that? So that's the future long-term goal, right? So the short-term goal right now is to reboot P2P pool, right?
Hmm.
Make it very simple with a single linear chain. Maybe add uncles to it so we can accommodate more miners. Build the transaction engine, and I think for me, I want to kind of pause there because I want to say, hey, here's a transaction engine. Let's see what people build with it. Because I might think of one thing, people might think of one thing, but the community might think of a million other ways to do it. Who knows which one takes off? Do you
I,
know what I mean?
I do have so many questions about the design because I do think like this trading idea of it is a nice thing. But what if, let's say, we do accommodate for all the shares that you do in the side chain, and depending on if you have sent out or did an X amount of work, you will get a spot in the block header on the main chain. Now the question
Mm-hmm.
that rises to me is like, is this depending on how many shares you have, or is this depending on, let's say, for example, a certain amount of BTC this would be worth on the mainnet? Because we do see this scheme on all these mining pools that you do have a threshold of like 0.005
Mm-hmm.
BTC until you hit a payout. So let's say I
Mm-hmm.
do mine 1,000 years with my Bitaxe. Would I be able to join then into the block header or not?
My intuition says probably not because the others would have joined a bit more too, right? If you've done 1,000 years, the others have also with larger hash rate have done 1,000 years too,
So
right?
there's not a threshold that I need
Uh,
to reach to go into the.
yeah. What you need to do is you need to find a buyer for your shares, and that is good and bad in a way. Like, what if nobody wants to buy?
And
You
what
know.
if nobody wants to sell?
Well, if they don't sell, then they're burning their hash rate, right? Or they're solo mining in a way. They're not participating in the pool mining process.
I see. They're solo mining because then they will be. Yeah, I see. Okay.
because then they just go straight away, just waiting for their own luck. When they might just as well run P2P pool in solo mode, right? Just run it locally in their own
Does it
private
have to
little
be
network.
another larger miner that buys your shares?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it could be it could be anybody. It could be a larger miner, or it could be a market maker, right? It could be anybody.
Mm.
Because what the accounting system will do is they will say, okay, look, Alice owns these 10,000 shares, Bob owns 8,000 shares. So these are my top two guys, right? I don't care how they ended up owning the share, whether they bought it or whether they mined it. I just know in the last 2 week window, Alice has 10,000 shares. So therefore, I'm going to pay her out, you know?
Interesting. Okay. So you still have to bootstrap it though, right? I mean, you still have to have someone making the share. Well, I guess no. I guess not. I guess the market makers could essentially bootstrap the network, right? Well, you still
Yeah,
need to
they could
solve a
come along
block
and buy it. Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah. But realistically, the bootstrapping ideally should be done by miners, right? Because it seems more organic. Maybe it's my naivety here. I don't know how exactly. My pool bootstrapping is a big problem, as we know that.
I'm
Right. In
still
order for those swaps to even happen, a block needs to get mined.
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I'm
So we
still
need to get a certain
thinking.
amount of hassle.
I'm still thinking a little bit about what you said to people who are not willing to sell their shares because they are very unlikely to go into the threshold of or into the accounting system, whatever it will look like later on, to be in the
Hmm.
header. So I'm still wondering if, let's say, for example, someone was the lucky one and found a block, but he is not sufficient enough from the number of shares that he has found to be in the payout. So he would just have burned his energy and doesn't even get a payout for that, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, if
I
you're
mean,
in a shared mining pool, it doesn't matter if you're solving blocks, really. I mean, you get
Yeah,
the same
correct.
for your shares as anyone else.
I see.
so say that again.
I'm just saying if you're in a shared mining pool, it doesn't it doesn't matter if you solved a block. If you got lucky and solved a block, it's just
Yeah,
your share is just worth the same as anyone else's.
Yeah, you
exactly,
cannot
exactly.
solve both problems. You cannot do that. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
So if you for your shares to be valid for other members on the P2P pool, they will be checking what block you're mining on. So they will check the Coinbase, right? They will check that you're following the rules
Hmm.
for P2P pool, right? Which is basically, okay, is this block valid? Am I going to include it in my accounting? If you're mining some other Coinbase, paying yourself out, right, in solo mode, then I won't account for your share as a valid share, right? So you just burnt energy.
I mean, it's quite an interesting design because we have seen a couple of new things coming up. For example, Ocean with the datum trying to change
Mhm.
over. I'm currently writing an article, and I kind of think I sorted it out how to pronounce it, how to describe it, what datum is in my experience, because I haven't designed it, but from the point of view, we had this centralization issue of the pool being in control of the counting and the payout and the block template creation. And datum, they only solve the block template creation, which is now decentralized, but the accounting and the payout is still
Yeah,
centralized.
yeah, yeah. That
So
has always been the criticism that we saw that okay, you can build your templates, but if you build a template, mind a block for a template which was OFAC non-compliant, the pool will be forced to not pay you. I mean, I'm not saying the pool won't pay you. The state, somebody could force the pool to not pay you.
hmm.
You know,
And this
so that mhm.
I was about to say, and this would totally be changed with a reboot of P2 Pool, basically, because now we do
Yeah,
have this template creation payout scheme. Because if you are now the one who found the block, your node will distribute this to this network, and everybody else who's following the same rules will agree to it and distribute it as well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there is still, of course, an attack vector that that the sidechain P2P pool miners are attacked. Then it's the simple Nakamoto logic comes along, which is like, as long as majority of hash rate is is disobedient, we'll have success. You just want to disobey.
I'm I'm a little bit stoked because this is really an interesting design scheme change that we have never seen in any other techniques before.
You have the transaction system.
Yeah, but this combination in total, of course, the
Yeah,
transaction system,
yeah,
we do have atomic swaps, so basically it's already there. You now need to combine
exactly.
everything, the atomic swaps, the accounting system. You need to make sure that the sidechain with a DAX system is working in
Mhm.
such a way that everybody is connected, because this is what's mind-boggling to this whole system. People are always talking about decentralization. We see Noster, we see other things. The biggest issue here is to combine these databases that everybody is working on the same thing. And this is the biggest issue from my point of view.
Yeah, to have the consensus on that everybody agrees on the state of of the database, so that the accounting is the same, right?
Yeah.
Is that yeah? Is that what you mean? Yeah, no. So when Matt was basically trying to say this to me, I was up till 4 a.m. Like, I mean, I was like, I couldn't follow what he was saying. I was like, no, this. I was like, what do you mean by this? Then what happens? So, I mean, he was like, yeah, but I always thought this was the most natural thing to do. I was like, but man, nobody understood what you were saying. It was
He's kind of
crazy.
on the next level.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like when you have a different perspective, I guess, you know. So let's see where this goes. And you know what the coolest thing about this is that most of the stuff is just exists now, which didn't exist like 5 years ago.
Hmm.
So if you want to build it all this out in Rust, this Rust, Bitcoin, BDK, all this ecosystem that has been built, it has only been built in the last 3, 4, 5 years that it's reliable and production ready. So the tooling is there. If you want to use those libraries to build a transaction system, you can do it today. You know, so it becomes an engineering problem as opposed to like really going into an unknown. Like, or maybe even the engineering problem is tractable. That we have tools and libraries and we have people who know this stuff now, which
I'm
was
really
not true
excited to
like
see
6, 7, 8 years.
I'm excited to see those tools because I think that's exactly what we need is, 100 different pools with different payout schemes and different ways of people working together to split their rewards.
Yeah.
I mean, we just need a lot of different ones. Like all centralizing on any one method is going to have its problems.
Yeah. You're so right, because you could come up with a design and not see the flaw. It could be live for 2 years and then someone hacks it. Whereas
Yeah,
if you have a diversity of ideas implemented out there, then we survive.
and I mean that's what these tools provide is
Hmm.
increasingly easier and easier ways to try out your ideas, to develop these ideas and put them out in practice and figure out how they work and
Yeah.
give people some options.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at the work Fediment and even the Cashew people are doing, right? A lot of the work is also standing on these shoulders, right? Of all these open source libraries out there now. You know?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. I know that's kind of what Evan and Callie are working with now to get the hash pools idea stood up.
Yeah. Oh, Evans in the name, because I've never really still talked to him. I've talked to him on Noster.
Oh, VNPRC. That's his.
Yeah,
That's his official internet
that's
name.
his
He
name. Yeah,
he I he lives near me. I know him in real life.
yeah, yeah. I see that he's heading to the meetup happening or the conference happening in Austin, is it? On
Yes,
Bitcoin Plus Plus. Yeah, yeah.
yes. Bitcoin plus plus. I'm going to be there as well.
Oh,
Are you going
awesome.
there too?
I am going. It's going to be a party. You coming?
Man, and yeah, but no. It's a long haul from me to
There's
do.
also going
So
to be the Texas Energy and Mining Summit happening that same
at the
week,
same time.
and another
Oh,
telehash.
ooh.
So So
That's
hopefully we'll get
exciting.
lucky and raise some money for open source mining.
No, we got to do that, of course.
Got to do it.
Got to keep the wheels moving.
Yeah, if there's any massive miners in the crowd, hint hint, you can point your hash rate to the telehash. Details coming soon on how to do that, but support a good cause, which is very well aligned with why we're all here in OSMU, which is dismantling the proprietary mining empire, supporting open source mining development, kind of bringing it back. If for those who don't know, the telehash is we've done it once so far, but the idea is it's like 10 hours. We try and get as many people as possible to point hash rate at a single pool, with a single payout address, and kind of solo mine and try our luck. And then of course all rewards go to the 256 Foundation, which is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting open source mining development. And there was one, what was that, like January, end of January, and it was successful. We solo mined a block that for like 8 hours, thanks to very gracious support by Marshall and plebsource.com, pointing a lot of hash rate to us, as well as a couple other mining firms like Megawatt. Solo mined a block. That was cool. That's huge for open source mining. That funded the first round of grants out of the 256 Foundation. And we're going to do it again at the Texas Energy and Mining Summit, which is is it like May, something like that? Yeah, it's the beginning of May. I think it's actually on Cinco de Mayo. Tune in, point your hash rate, all those things. More details on that coming soon.
That'll be fascinating, man. So is the same 10 hours? It was the last time 10 hours too?
The last one was it was scheduled to be 10 hours. We went for like a little over 8 hours with myself, Rod from Bitcoin Park, and Eco, and a bunch of different guests up on stage, just kind of talking about anything and everything. I think we went for over 8 hours and then solved the block. And there was much excitement, and then basically stopped after that, I think. It's a long haul. It's an endurance event. Although I guess the more hash rate we get, sort of the less endurance needed. But maybe we go for a few blocks. Who knows?
Imagine just sitting there. Oh, another block. Nice. Let's catch the next one.
I mean, that's what we're gonna get to with home mining and Bitaxe and other home miners. Soon it's going to be happening more and more often, right? We'll be like, oh, cool, like we got another one, this month.
You're bringing up something to my mind, because we talked about this a couple times earlier on all these town halls that we do have here, that the goal here is the basic goal. The groundbreaking goal is to have 1 million Bitaxes all around the globe, to be mining at home, hopefully to a solo instance, and therefore distributing true decentralization. Of course, this is a huge thing that we need to accomplish, but I strongly believe in it, and we will get there. But I had a conversation with someone in our space here a couple of days ago where we were talking about this and how we can actually achieve this even quicker. And he's basically on the term of like, well, Bitaxes or the Bitaxe itself is a nice thing, but we need to think a little bit more about customers and what they want. And you probably have seen it. There is soon a thing coming up, like a coffee warmer Bitcoin miner, the Mine Coffee or something like that it's called.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not out there. It's still in development. And he was basically saying, well, that's the kind of thing that we need. We need some gadgets that you can use in your daily life, and they're just idling, mining, like your router, just mining while it's idling. That would be so awesome. And I'm still thinking about like, what else can we do? Now we do have a coffee warmer, hopefully very soon, which is heating up your coffee or your mug of water if you're a tea guy. What else can we do? Basically, the sky's the limit. But I do
There, I
get,
mean, I
yeah,
I talk with the heat punk guys a lot, right? I mean, they had a whole conference just recently in Denver, Colorado, the Heat Punk Summit, and there's a million applications for heat reuse. Water heaters is a huge one. Pool heaters. There's all sorts of things that you can do. I mean, there's tons of good applications. I think one of the limiting factors right now is that there are no mining machines that are built to be a water heater.
yeah,
Not necessarily. Not certainly not for heat reuse or utilizing waste heat. So I think a lot of people in that field are kind of trying to repurpose ant miners or hydro miners for that are meant for data centers. And I mean that can work. That can work, but those machines are not made for that. And so been talking with them a lot, and I think they're very interested in the work that we're doing here, which is providing some options and providing, a way to utilize these ASICs. And then the idea being is that you could take those ideas and develop them into those sort of niche machines, because there might be someone who has a ton of experience in making pool heaters, and now they are, we're working towards that future in which they can now design a commercial pool heater that people can just go buy at the store based around Bitcoin mining ASICs, which is, I think, what the limiting factor is right now. It's coming. We'll get there, and I think that is going to also massively decentralize the hash rate, especially if these new pool ideas come to fruition, which I think they will, because we'll have we're in this great future. We're going to have all these pool heaters out there, these hot water heaters for your home out there, but it's no good if they're all pointing it at Brains or Ant Pool or something like that. So we need all the pools to go along with it. But like Jungla just told us about, we're working on some great new ideas. Hopefully we can get a lot of different great new ideas out there so people have options and they can just pick whichever one they think works for them, or whichever one their like Bitcoiner kid thinks is the best, whatever. Like, just lots of options. So it's a multi-pronged approach for sure, but we'll get there. So anyways, to your comment about like, well, we should be thinking about making things for consumers, it's like, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. But there's a lot of different things that can be made. So I would encourage anyone who has an idea for something, whether it be a coffee warmer or a hot water heater, to get involved in what we have going on here. Check it out. If you can't build it yourself, like, team up with some people who know how to build it, and let's get it done. Right? We need to get more sort of electronics designers, firmware engineers, software people involved in this stuff, so we can start cranking these things out. But it's pretty cool how how far we've gotten so far. Long ways to go, though.
Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating what OSMU is doing in terms of open source on the hardware and the firmware end, right? Because I mean, software is open sourced, but very little of the hardware or firmware design is open source, right? I mean, maybe that's my naivety, given that I live in the software world.
No, you're absolutely right. I think for the longest time in Bitcoin, there was conferences like TabConf and BTC++ and stuff where there's lots of people talking about software stuff, and it was kind of a no-brainer to open source it. You're like, oh yeah, no, of course we'll open source it. Like, that's just how this is done. And on the other side, we had mining, hardware and firmware, and it was not even considered to open source it at all. But that's changing. That is definitely changing. Headed to Mining Disrupt here at the end of, next week, and there's going to be a big Bitaxe presence. There's going to be various talks about open source mining, mining decentralization, where 2 years ago there was nothing like that. So it's coming around for sure. And of course, BTC++ this year is mempool and mining. So it's sort of a unification of these two facets of Bitcoin that were totally separate before.
It's kind of interesting to me. I do see this lately coming up more and more now that we are into OSMU and all this movement that we're doing here. I'm kind of praying like finally after like 2.5 years, people are now noticing. All right, mining is important. We need to talk about it, and we need to talk about decentralization a little bit more, not just nodes and where to place them and how to obfuscate your stuff with doing silent payments or stuff like this. Don't get me wrong, these are all nice things, but people are now finally realizing how important all this stuff is. Not what we are doing, but what this whole ecosystem is doing. I do see this here in my home country in Germany. We do have like a magazine, which is like a magazine in all these countries all around that are speaking German. And in there, I'll write an article about mining specifically and the decentralization. We do have events that are solely about mining and how we can fix a couple of things with implementing different mechanisms. And now we're talking with Zhangli about a reboot of P2Pool. It's mind-boggling to me. We're finally getting there.
It's so cool. I'm so excited. I mean, like, well, the Bitaxe is on the cover of Bitcoin Magazine this month, or this quarter. It's a quarterly magazine.
Has any one of you yet read the article? I want to know what's in there. I'm not paying for that.
It's pretty expensive. They said they're going to send me a couple. Mind-boggling. Yes. So I saw the table of contents. They posted the table of contents for the magazine on Twitter. And there's so many articles in there about mining decentralization, right? This is the Bitcoin Magazine mining issue, but all the topics are around decentralization, this is a huge change in the way we're thinking about this. And I think it's really important. I mean, old timers like Matt Corallo will tell you, it's always been, mining's always been centralized. We've always been like complaining about this, but I don't think that in the past, Bitcoin miners were really concerned or cared or were even aware of it. You know, maybe Bitcoin developers were, but I don't think miners were. And, you know, it's changing for the better.
It is definitely. And I'm really looking forward to that. You know what I'm also looking forward to? The next release of AxeOS.
This is going to be a big one.
This is
I
gonna
know
be
I've
a
been,
big one, dude.
Wanklu's been like, I'm going to release it. And I've been
I want
like,
to press the
that
button,
picture of
please.
like holding him back. Like he's like that big like pink sphere that says like version 260 and like Wanklu's reaching for it. And then in the next scene, it's me like holding him back. But it'll happen. We're really close. I got my sort of pet project in there. That's working.
I'm taking a
what
look
else
on
are
the
we waiting
milestone
for?
for it, because now we're utilizing milestones that we are on an organization over on Bitaxe.org. We only have 3 left. I think the second one I can even close in a couple of seconds because I still have a PR that I need to submit. And I'm not sure about the issue that we do have from you about the TPS power measurement, that these are incorrect. Have we done any work on that yet?
No, I haven't done any work on that. Damn it.
I mean, maybe we ignore it and just press the button.
Where are these milestones, anyways?
If you go over to pull requests, so that's a good hands-on for everybody in the audience. If you go over to bitaxe.org/esp-miner, which is our repository for the firmware for the Bitaxe device, you will find different tabs such as code, issues, pull requests, discussion, and so on. Go over to pull requests, and on the top right-hand side, left next to create new pull request, you will find milestones. If you do click on that, you do see the milestones that we do have. We have currently version 260 and API versioning. API versioning is its own thing because this will take weeks to get it right. But 260, we only have like 3 issues open.
I only see one. No. Under 260 milestone, there's only one.
There are 3 open issues.
What am I looking at here? What is open? Is PR? Is milestone V2?
No. Is PR? No. is open.
Oh.
It doesn't need to be a PR.
Oh, got it. Okay, I see.
Because I was trying to put in specific issues. For example, your issue that you opened about the power measurements, that these ones are a little bit incorrect. For those of you who are now wondering what the heck are these nerds talking about again, so the TPS 546, which is the buck converter who's converting the 5 volts input to the 1.2 volts or whatever you're utilizing for your ASIC, it does have the function to measure like what kind of current is going through it. But the issue with that is it is only accounting for things that this piece is actually powering. And we just added like plain 5 watts extra to it to account for all the other components like the display, the ESP, and a couple other components. There's still some inconsistency, and you will never ever with your Bitaxe see a 100% accuracy. You will not even get to 95%. The issue here is we cannot account for the insufficient or the inefficiency of your power supply that you're utilizing. So we can never fix this issue, the gap between what your Bitaxe reports and what you do see on power usage on the wall. There will always be a gap. But we figured out, or Scott, you figured out that the measurements are slightly off. So this is a bug. This is just an issue, not a pull request. So therefore it's in the milestone. And the one that I was talking about to close very soon is remove all hardware-specific code from AxeOS. Because we only have one last thing there that needs to be done, if I'm not mistaken, which is utilizing the gauges and the range of them specified on what kind of model you're using. And I do have a PR somewhere for this. I think I even told you, look at it, I've created something, but I don't know where it is. I need to find it, then I will PR it, and then we can close this issue as well. And the last thing that we need to put in is add ASIC failure status screen. We do have a PR for this. Maybe we add 1 or 2 more pull requests because there are a couple of things in the repo that I opened that we need to put into 2.6.0 because they're really nice. But then the current plan is we will release 2.6.0 next weekend. Not this one, next weekend. That's the plan. If there's no major...
Let's punt the power measurements. We can punt that to a future milestone. But I think that the ASIC failure status screen and the hardware-specific code from AxeOS, we should get those ones in there.
Yeah. Especially like the different gauges that you do have now arranged from like, let's say 1 to 24 Bitaxe Max. You do have 1 to 35 for an Ultra, to 45 for Super, and to 64 Gamma. This
Pro for the power.
Yeah. I do have created these ones. I don't know where they are, probably on my laptop somewhere in my bag. But anyway, these ones will be resolved. And as soon as if they are resolved in the middle of the week, then we can go for the version 2.6.0 in the middle of the week if we do have 8 hours of consistent usage of the firmware testers. That's the reason why I was also making an announcement a couple of days ago or yesterday about firmware testers, that I'm begging for people to test out this crazy stuff that we are trying to build or fix here, because it's always nice to be a developer and sitting here and doing like, well, I created it works on my machine. Yeah, let that melt in your head. It works on my machine. That's nice, but we need to test it out there in the fields. And that's the reason why we do have these people, and why I'm so appreciated that they are willing to spend their time on just faffing around.
Yes, it's huge. We really appreciate all the firmware testers. There's people in there who jump on this like immediately as soon as a new like pre-release comes out, and it's much appreciated. Even just loading it up and running it like is huge. And of course, if you can go more in depth too, that's also very beneficial. We've been at this for a while now, so we've got a lot of different hardware out there, a lot of different ways to update AxeOS. So trying all that stuff out is getting to be too much for any one person to do.
I do have one question for you. Do you think maybe you can figure out which PR I'm talking about. Do you think we have 180 kilobytes available to put on extra on the ESP?
Oh yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Um, well, I mean, we have all that PS RAM available. I guess
But
that's not
it's
quite
not
what
going to
we're
be loaded in the PS RAM because it's not a
right.
variable that needs to be loaded and offloaded. It
Right.
needs to stay there.
Yeah.
It's 180
Right.
kilobyte. It's massive.
I have no idea. I haven't really looked at how much space we are using and how much we have available, but I'm guessing it's kind of a lot. I don't know. We should take a look at how much space is available. Every time you build, I think it says just as
Does
this.
it?
Flat. Yeah, it's that memory type usage summary.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
I remember.
oh yeah, this says we're at 10% usage. So
Well, I'm going to merge it. Okay. I'm not trying to announce it here because I want the people to figure this out on their own, and they will, especially because it's obvious.
there's also let me take a little bit more look at this. There's two different sections. There's flash code and there's DI RAM, which, to be honest, I don't know what that means. That's at 57%. Oh, but that's way smaller. That must be something else.
Yeah, that's not the flash that we do have available. I mean, how much actual flash do we have available? Like two megabytes, and then we do have all these other partitions for PSRAM and extra, or is the PSRAM an extra component, and we actually do have 8 megabytes?
Yeah, the PSRAM is an extra component, and I think we have 8 megabytes of that, and I think we have 8 megabytes of flash.
We really need to
Fun
dive a
one
little bit
to
deeper
figure out
into the
live.
section of all these different partitions, because a couple days ago or weeks, I don't know, time is running by, we discussed a little bit about how to use different partitions, especially when it comes for big change that people are begging us to do. Kind of thing is some people are annoyed by the fact that you need to update two different files. You do have this www.bin file and the esp-minor.bin file, and the idea behind that was very clear because we needed two different partitions because it serves different functions, and it's easier to do with partitions and partitioning all the things to a specific location on the memory. And now
So we have 16 megabytes of flash and 8 megabytes of PS RAM.
That's good to
It's
know.
not. Yeah. Here, I'll post a picture of this in the chat. I don't
Yeah,
know
well,
off the top of
so
my head know what all these different
the thing here
categories
is
are.
what we really need to do in the future is to merge these two files into like one big file, but it comes with a lot of complexity because we're working on such a tiny microcontroller. The ESP32 is still a little bit hard to work
I mean,
on.
this is a ton for a microcontroller. Like megabytes is massive for a microcontroller. It's not
Yeah.
much for a sort of an embedded Linux application processor, but
I'm still waiting for an ESP with 4 cores.
oh yeah,
I'm still
I'm
waiting
just waiting
for
for an ESP32 with 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi.
Oh my goodness, yeah. That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. They announced one,
I've seen it, but
but it's not really.
it's weird. Have you? I think we've talked about it, and now we're diving a little bit into the nerdy section of hardware. But there's this new Raspberry Pi microcontroller thingy, which does have like 2 cores, one RISC-V and one ARM chip, which is totally weird because you cannot use both at the same time. You need to decide with your firmware which one you're utilizing.
That is weird, huh? That's the Raspberry Pi one, the new one.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I want to play around with that. I ordered some. No, it arrived. That's right. I ordered some of those Pico dev boards with them. I haven't had a chance to actually use it yet, but yeah, it could be cool. I mean, they don't have Wi-Fi built in, so
I
probably
mean,
not going to work.
the newest
for,
puppy that I do have laying around here is a Raxa board. And
oh.
I'm trying to play a little bit on Ethernet because, yeah, it's a nice thing. And my DHCP server and my Wi-Fi controllers are not liking that many components. But anyway,
I got a lot of
do we have, by the
over
way,
here.
it's awesome to have everybody here in the audience, guys. If you do have any questions, I see plenty of people that are tuning in here regularly and plenty of OGs in here as well. But if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. I'm really looking for that. Let's see. So we said AxeOS 2.6.0 will be released the latest time. The ETA basically is next weekend, someday next weekend. Let it be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If we are really bonkers, we do it on Sunday, 11:59 p.m. or a.m. I don't know. I'm confused by this timing scheme.
For everyone. There's a link to the milestones for everyone who want to take a look. It's a very short list, but and I think one of them we can even punt.
Yeah, the bug one, maybe. It's I didn't even know how we could figure out how to measure them correct.
The power. Well, we can switch off the buck regulator now, so we could switch off that and then see what, using a ammeter, see what the current draw is for everything else, and try and get a better estimation of that, and then see how far off the current TPS 546 measurement is, because I have a feeling that's the problem, is that measurement of the output power of the voltage regulator, I think, is incorrect. So that would be looking at the data sheet and figuring out why is that the case.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the issue with that is as soon as you power off the TPS, the ESP will no longer have any work to do with the serial communication, and therefore it will draw less power.
I think that's going to be really small, though. That's going to be, I don't know, like milliamps difference.
Are we including TPS 546 measurements in 2.6.0? So what we are including in 2.6.0 is the change for the fault states. That's already merged into the dev latest branch, and this will be included in 2.6.0. So now if your TPS 546 does any stupid stuff, or you do any stupid stuff with your power input, it will be displayed on your dashboard, so the user gets notified, well, your power supply is shit, or stop overclocking, something like that.
And I think we have a PR from Mutatrum to include those faults on the OLED, which would be badass. I tried it out earlier and it didn't seem to work. So I think we're still working on that, or maybe he fixed it and I just need to try it again.
Which one? Can you repeat that?
This is the issue of adding the voltage regulator faults, the power faults, to the display, to the OLED display.
Oh,
or just the
okay.
LED.
Do we have a PR for that already?
Well, I think it's hinted at in 777, the ASIC failure status screen.
Yeah, I see. I looked through the files. Yeah, kinda.
Maybe I'll make a specific comment about this.
Well, Decentralized Mind is asking if anybody of us is coming this year to BTC Prague. Well, I don't know. I want to, but I'm a little bit. I was highlighting how amazed I am and how amazing I just feel in general about that the world is finally, or at least the space that I'm in here and in all the other spaces, that people are finally talking about Bitcoin mining and decentralization in general. And it feels like BTC Prague is sometimes a little bit behind, because I was reaching out to them a couple of weeks earlier and I was like, well, guys, BTC Prague is a nice event, but you know what you're missing is someone who's truly in open source mining and talking about decentralization from the ground up, and not like this bullshit, come and buy my new miner and you're going to be a happy person. They happily denied and said, well, we can go to the hack days, which is like 2 days before the BTC Prague, and just share whatever we want there. Maybe
Oh,
I don't know. Like I'm honest. I'm not thinking small. I'm thinking big. Because if we want to go over to BTC Prague, I want to be there with the plebs, with the dudes from OSMU, and make sure that we get as many people on board as possible. Because the people that are attending to BTC Prague, they do know the hack days are some weirdos, nerdies. They don't want to go there. But if we can attend to the main event and be there on the stage and tell them next to Sailor or whoever is praising about Bitcoin and prices, whatever they care about, then we're getting into the mainstream. And that's why I'm saying I'm always thinking big with these events. I'm looking forward to it. Then the next event I'm attending to is the Bitcoin Swiss conference, because I got an invitation there to speak there on the stage about this project here, Bitaxe in general and mining in general. So I don't know, maybe BTC Prague, maybe not. I haven't done a decision. What about you, Scott?
I haven't made a decision either. I've talked to several people that say it's a really good show. I also last year went to Baltic Honey Badger, which is kind of in that same corner of the world, and it was really amazing. So I was kind of thinking of going to Honey Badger, but certainly I'm not going to go to both of those. So I don't know. I guess I got to make up my mind which one to go to. It's kind of a long ways away.
Yeah, especially the Honey Badger. I'm definitely going for Honey Badger this year.
You are?
Yeah, definitely.
Man, that's a good
100
show. I really
100%.
enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it last year.
I don't want to be
It was
mean, but
it was small but like solid.
yeah, that's the thing. I don't want to be mean, but BTC Prague, it's okay for the mainstream, for the people who don't know about Bitcoin or just getting started. I'm too old for this shit. I'm sorry.
There's a Bitaxe seller. I feel like he's from Amsterdam or something like that. He was on the main stage of BTC Prague last year. I feel like he was talking about Bitaxe on the main stage. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't know who
And they
was.
had that whole like big, wasn't this BTC Prague? They had that huge circle, like a Bitcoin logo made out of Bitaxes, and they were selling them.
No,
And
that
there's a
was
shot
Bitcoin
of,
Amsterdam. That was Bitcoin Amsterdam.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I think they were on stage talking about it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I
it
don't know
was
what the
Bitcoin Brabant. But I'm
who
not
was
sure if
Amsterdam.
he was on the stage in Prague. I don't know. But I definitely know that he has like he created like this big Bitcoin logo out of BitX devices on
Oh,
the
was
Bitcoin
that okay?
Amsterdam.
That was at the like Bitcoin magazine show in Amsterdam, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Sorry, never mind. I was getting the two confused.
There are too many events around the globe.
That's sort of like Northern, Eastern Europe. Who can keep track?
Well, especially as an American. Your country is way too big
I don't even.
to notice these smaller ones.
Yeah, seriously, and there's so many of them. Who can keep track?
Uh, well, but definitely, but what I need to make sure is that, I don't know, maybe this year, maybe next year would be a bad idea, because then my son is a little bit older and I can take him with me to come over to the US and to attend to a couple events over there.
There you go. That sounds like a great idea.
I mean, I can't imagine sitting like 8 hours or 10 hours on a plane. I don't know.
It's the greatest country. You're gonna love it.
Well, you always praise this until the IRS is coming for you.
Yeah, that's right. We're gonna abolish the IRS. It's gonna be great. You're gonna love it.
Well, anyway,
I'm
let's
sure
see. Do we have
Boris
any
thinks we're gonna-
questions from the audience? If not, I think we are kind of done with today's town hall. It was, as always, amazing. I'm really thankful for Jang being up here on stage and telling us a little bit about the idea of rebirthing, basically, P2 Pool, which is just mind-boggling. And I really, really look forward for this to happen. And I can't wait to go out there and tell everybody, shut off your miners and go over to P2 Pool.
I mean, this is essential. We've got to have this, this and other decentralized mining pool ideas that are out there, because we can't decentralize the hash rate without decentralized pools. Both of these things have got to happen. It's incredibly important. Honey Badger 2025. Oh
Exclamation
boy.
mark. So he's coming there
Jungly
as
and I
well.
had a
Well,
couple drinks there last year. It was pretty fun.
seems like we need to go to Honey Badger. We're ditching Prague probably.
Riga is a really cool town. Riga is a very cool town. It was my first time there last year and I was impressed.
Did you pay anything with Bitcoin?
Yeah, they have a bar called Bitcoin Underground. It's this like it's like a in a basement, super cool bar. It actually kind of I haven't been to PubKey, but it kind of reminds me of what PubKey is like. It's like one of these bars you kind of go down into. And so basically each night after the conference got over, everyone would go to this bar, and it's a tiny little bar, so it would just pour out into the street. There's like a kind of older like cathedral across the street, you know, and it's in this sort of uh, side area. It was so cool. I mean, just tons of people, all your favorite Bitcoiners, like out in the street in front of this bar that accepts Bitcoin for beers. It was fantastic, and it was perfect weather, and like everyone was having a great time. It was really cool. Highly recommended.
I'm getting a little bit. I'm not sure if this is the correct word here. Esoteric, maybe. I'm feeling like,
Esoteric?
yeah, I'm feeling like we're getting there to actually living our dreams, because we're working on stuff we are loving, and we're going around and meeting people that are on the same boat.
Yeah. I mean, I'm having the time of my life. This is fantastic. And it's so cool to see more and more people getting stoked on it as well, joining up, helping promote stuff, working on their own projects. That's fantastic. I mean, what's cooler than working on something that is important for the world that is also super fun with rad people? It doesn't get any better than that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Let's quickly take a look in the chat. Kotick was posting P2Pool Coinbase payout, and the Coinbase P2P pool revived in block 886688. What's that?
Well, that seems pretty recent.
It is, and it states P2P-SPB.xyz.
Huh. It's P2 pool, he says.
It's like the
Okay.
original P2 pool, including 20 sets to P2PK. Read here. Mononut. I've totally missed that. What? Interesting. Oh no,
That is
I've seen
interesting.
that. The repo is still in use. Oh, that's okay. So, but that's the original P2 pool.
You know what's pretty cool here, right? Is this is permissionless, right? You can do what you want to do, right? You can just do things. If you have an idea, just do it. Like, let's go. No one can stop you. If you want to turn P2 pool back on, like, do it.
Yeah, definitely. Badger is asking, is there any news on when the update of AxeOS and more streamlined benchmark testing will be released? Well, I'd say the last 45 minutes we were talking about the next release. But basically next weekend.
Soon.
Next weekend.
Soon.
Yeah. And apart from benchmarking testing, I don't know. So we don't have any particular functions or things for test your ASIC on the Bitaxe to go. This is not implemented. I do know that a couple of people are working on like a software where they're trying to fine tune the Bitaxe with algorithms, like trying to catch a specific temperature or catch a specific hash rate on an average. So that's in development and will be released soon. That's what I've heard from them. because it's a friend of mine who's working on that. But I don't know for sure if this will be open source or not. So I have no ideas about that. If it will not be open source, I will never talk about it again. If it will be, then I will.
Never speak of this again.
Yeah, like I need
There's a couple of projects going on. We have a tuning channel here on OSMU, and it seemed like there were several channels, and then what's his name? The Bitcoin Hero guy was working on one that looked pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely, and a couple other ones. So there's so many things going on, and I don't know, like even if we would talk for like 3 hours more, we still had topics to talk about because there's so much things happening here in this Discord. But I feel pleased about today's town hall because it is refreshing to talk about something completely out of scope that we never really catched on in these town halls here before. So this was a really good one, and I'll make sure to upload this ASAP so that other people can listen to this as well. And thanks again to you, Zhang for sharing your insights with us.
Yeah, much appreciated. I mean, we're the Open Source Miners United. I feel like pool software is definitely in our purview as well. It's not just hardware.
Thanks, guys. It was great talking to you all. I have a race tomorrow morning, so I want to go crash.
Psychopath.
Good luck on that.
Good luck.
Right, take it easy, guys.
Get first place.
Lovely talking to you. Oh, yeah, I'll finish.
Whichever. It's all good.
Yeah. Ciao, guys.
Yeah.
See ya. Yeah, and apart from that, you
running
told
people like
what?
I think he's talking about a running race. Some crazy people get out there and run, and they're not even being chased.
Oops.
Oops.
Yeah, well, no, but running is okay. I was a couple of days ago. I was running like 15 kilometers. I don't know what this is in miles. I'm not used to this metric.
No one knows.
Change.
No
one knows. Yeah, well, no, running is okay. But anyway, yeah, like there's so many topics. We do have solar, 3D printing. We even have a memes channel. We need to highlight Just Hoddle again here. I'm not mentioning him often enough, but even if you don't know about the memes channel, check it out. It is worth it. Copy a couple of memes and share them.
Did you see these tweets from Just Hoddle? He kind of like retweeted them yesterday, I think, but they were his tweets from 2021. It was like, what we really need is more, USB miners that use latest generation chips. And he was talking about this idea he had about what if we just got a bunch of people to run small miners? It was very cool. It was cool to see him talking about that and getting that out there. I definitely didn't see those tweets first time around. But it's also cool because when I was posting about this Bitaxe idea on Bitcoin Talk, he was one of the first people to reach out to me. He was like, this sounds like a great idea. And I just thought he was a random dude, but apparently he had been thinking about all this for a while at that point. So he's also our chief meme officer.
Yeah, definitely. That's a worth-earned rank on this Discord.
Yes, he's one of the great thinkers of our generation, apparently.
And that's what's bringing me back to a thing that I'm always telling the people. Even if you're not a software developer, even if you're not a hardware developer, if you do have an idea, don't hold back on it. Share it. Maybe you find someone who's stupid enough to think it out and do it. And don't get me wrong when I say stupid, but sometimes you just need to be stupid to try out new stuff nobody has done before, because then it will work out of a sudden.
Yeah, get your idea out there. You never really know. And you'll probably find collaborators and people who are stoked on your idea and want to work on it.
Yeah, well, with that, I do think we don't really have any more topics to talk about unless we want to talk about everything else, but that's going to be too much. And I like to keep these town halls in between 1 and 1.5 hours. We're getting close to 1.5 hours. I do thank everybody for tuning in here today. And I do thank everybody who's listening to this later on all these podcast platforms that are out there, whatever. Well, it's always amazing being here. And I thank you, Scott, for being here again on the stage with me and entertaining the people. Thanks to everybody in the audience. And if you don't have any further questions, keep hashing, keep thinking positive. See you next time in 2 weeks.
Yeah, man. Thanks for putting this together. It's always fun times to do. Thanks to everyone who came. Shout out to all the legends in the audience. Basically, everyone here is a legend. So appreciate you all.